Well, it looks like a reduced storage model for the PlayStation 5 will be showing up soon, at least in some parts of the world. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So this report comes to us from Deal Labs, and they have a pretty good track record of being spot on with these kind of things. I think they sort of have access to a retail backend. And I will have a link to the article in the description below, and I highly recommend checking it out. So for just a little backstory, when the PS5 Slim, don't call it a Slim, was released in November of 2023, it brought somewhat of a physical smaller chassis, and it also included 1 terabyte of internal storage instead of the 825 gigs that the old, quote, fat system had. And we saw some other changes, like the front USB-A port was replaced with a second USB-C port. However, they still operate at 2.0 USB speeds. Well, according to Deal Labs, it looks like Sony is about to introduce another revision that would bring back that 825 gigs of storage. So let's take a look at the article from Deal Labs using Google Translate, so just be aware. An article here says 825 gigabyte instead of 1 terabyte, an unexpected regression for the digital PS5 Slim. It seems that Sony has opted for a rather unexpected strategy to avoid a third price increase for the PS5 Digital Edition in Europe. As a reminder, the PS5 Digital Edition launched at €399 in 2020 before increasing to €449 and then again to €499 in April of 2025, an increase of €100 in less than 5 years. And just a side note, that's basically a 25% increase on the cost of the system over those 5 years. Normally systems go down in value, but this seems like you've made 25% on your investment here. But continuing on with the article, it says, thus the storage space for the new PS5 Slim Digital Chassis E would be reduced to 825 gigabytes compared to the 1 terabyte for the previous model, which was Chassis D. The new version of Chassis E console would carry the CFI 2100 series, and more precisely the CFI 2116 reference. That's just basically the model of the system. Note that this reduction would only concern the digital edition. The PS5 Slim Standard with the disk drive, also based on the Chassis E, would retain a 1 terabyte SSD. To date, this change has only been observed on the European version of the console. The 825 gigabyte label is even clearly visible on the new packaging, alongside the 4K and HDR logos. However, the specifics of the models intended for other regions remain unknown for now. So let's just kind of recap some of this. This is only affecting the digital edition of the PS5, and this has only been seen so far in Europe. However, I do believe this will probably be the standard going forward everywhere. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a production standpoint to have a 1 terabyte version in the rest of the world and an 825 gigabyte version just in Europe. And I also won't be surprised if this storage reduction makes its way to the disc version of the PS5 Slim as well. However, there's nothing in the article to indicate that anybody at Deal Labs has seen that just yet. And the reason why I think this is basically the disc version and the digital version are the same system. You just have that drive that's added on to it. And that was kind of what Sony did with the Slim, don't call it a Slim model, is that they could use basically one single version and just slap on that extra disk drive. And there's no mention of anything else changing in this model, so I expect this to be sort of a quiet release. However, if Sony did add any kind of feature to this system, say like faster USB speeds, we may see some kind of marketing for that. No, according to Deal Labs, this revision is expected to begin shipping around September 13th, 2025, so there's still time to grab that current PS5 if you want a bit of extra storage. Now, obviously, this change is being done to reduce costs and prevent another price increase. And we've seen this kind of thing coined in the past, especially when it comes to food, as shrinkflation. You get a manufacturer of something like, say, potato chips, and rather than increasing the cost of the bag to compensate for the increased price of producing the product, the manufacturer just reduces how many ounces of chips you're going to get in the bag. So it basically looks like Sony's kind of taking that same strategy here by reducing the storage on the PlayStation 5 in order to have to not increase the price of the system. Now, as I mentioned before, back in April, Sony announced that they would increase the price for the digital and the standard PS5 consoles across Europe, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And then back in August, the price of every PS5 console went up by $50 in the US. So Sony is definitely trying to not raise the price of the PS5 again by reducing the amount of storage in the system. And I do have to wonder, when someone gets their hands on this new system and tear it apart, if we see any kind of other reduction, like maybe perhaps some smaller heat sinks. But it doesn't look like the footprint of the system will change any, at least not from any information we've seen so far. And of course, Sony's not the only one that's had this issue. We've seen the price of the original Switch go up, as well as the Xbox in the recent year. So I do have to wonder if we'll see maybe Xbox take a similar step and reduce the storage on their systems in order to save some money there. It's kind of hard for Nintendo to reduce the storage on the Switch too, because you really don't have a whole lot to begin with. But something else that could possibly be done is you could use a little bit slower storage as long as all the games will still work. So it would be interesting to see when people get their hands on this new system if that 825 gigs of storage runs any slower than the current 1 terabyte. But let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments below. Do you think this reduction in storage is a really big deal considering how big games are now? Or would you be someone who would rather have the option for a little bit more storage when you buy the system and just pay a little more for it? Of course, keeping in mind that you can expand the storage on the PlayStation 5 as well. And if you were on the fence about getting a PlayStation 5, does this make you want to just try to go ahead and pick one up sooner so perhaps you can get one with the 1 terabyte of storage? Drop your comments below and let me know your thoughts. And if you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so. It really does help the channel out quite a bit. I want to thank you for watching and be good.